Okay, sophomores, we are on part 2 of our video, and let's get to our next word for 5.4, and that would be yellow peril. Yellow peril is definitely a racist term. This is a term of racism against Asians, especially Japanese and Chinese in the United States that happened in the modern era. This ends up leading to our next term, the Chinese Exclusion Act. The significance of this is that there's anti-immigration against Chinese and Japanese people who are coming into the United States. And this will lead to laws limiting or excluding or stopping immigration of Asian people from Japan, especially China, in the United States at this time. The Chinese Exclusion Act, this was passed in 1882 of the modern era. This was a law in the United States that basically stopped immigration of Chinese people from coming into the United States. Very significant because in the United States, it didn't limit numbers of immigrants from Europe, but however, they did limit immigrants from China. At the same time, there was also racism and exclusion of immigrants from Japan as well during this time period in the early modern era. Speaking of racist ideas, the United States is not alone, as we have in this era the White Australia policy, which basically limited immigration in Australia to white people. It was literally called the White Australia policy, and basically the goal was to keep Australia to be a white nation, and that stopped people from Southeast Asia, China from immigrating. They would have a dictation test, a test that was basically designed to that you could not pass, and they would give this to people who were seen from Asian ancestry in Australia. Very significant because it kind of shows the sign of the times that we see during the modern era. A lot of racism, the era of social Darwinism, manifest destiny, white man's burden, and this continues in immigration policy in not only the United States, but also in Australia with the White Australian policy. Ethnic enclaves are basically areas of a city where you see one ethnicity or one group. Often we think of areas like Chinatown, for example. New York, there was Little Italy, or areas where one ethnic group will primarily live in a city. Many of these started as immigrants moved to cities for jobs. They were forced to live in poorer areas of cities. So we see the growth of Chinatowns all over the world at this time. Let's get to Chinatown. That's our next and our last term. Chinatown is basically there are Chinatowns all over the world, not just the United States, Australia, Paris, England. And a lot of times Chinatowns are where more Asian people live, sometimes Chinese, sometimes more than Chinese. And they're basically an area where it's an ethnic enclave, and it's an area where a lot of people from China or other areas of Asia live. They have their markets, their places to live. We even have ethnic enclaves in Minneapolis, for example. There's an area where more Latino people live, an area where more Somalian people live. So ethnic enclaves are where people of one ethnicity usually live in a city. Usually it's a poorer part of the city that where they realize that they can live near people around them, share their culture, share their food, and their religion. And these grow as cities grow in the modern era.